Okay, we're learning a Maamar. We haven't learned the day Maamar in a while. It's a Maamar on Bay's year from the Rebbe in the year, the Rebbe said in the year 1987, Tafshim Mem Zayin. So bring up the Pasuk first over here in the English. It's a Pasuk in Mashir Shir and Daled. It says, Pasuk Yud Beis, Pasuk 12, Gan Na'ul Achoisi Kala. A locked up garden is my sister. Gan Na'ul, a locked up garden is my sister. Gan Na'ul, a locked up spring. Mayin Chosum, a sealed fountain. So that's the pasuk in Shir Hashim, obviously referring to the relationship between HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem, and the Jewish people. So we're going to focus on this moment, the difference between Gan Na'ul, what is the Gan? What does it mean, like a closed garden? And Gan Na'ul, which is a closed spring. So the Rebbe says like this. The pasuk says Gan Na'ul l'choisi kala, and Gan Na'ul mayin chosam. Maybe Ad Marash, the Rebbe Marash brings down in his Maamar, which is from the Balyam, that is the Rebbe Marash's birthday of Bay's year, the second year, which falls out, I believe, this year on Monday next week. The Maamar, the Parshas Tazri V'Tzeira, the Hemshech, which is a continuation of the Maamar from Matzazu from the year Tafresh Mem, which was about 107 years, 1880, which was 187 years before the Rebbe said this Maamar. The Rebbe quotes on that. The Rebbe brings the Rebbe Marash, who quotes the Targum on the pasuk of Shir Hashir that says, "What does it mean Gan Na'ul? What does it mean Gan Na'ul? Like a sealed or a closed garden?" And Gan Na'ul. What does it mean a sealed garden? So the Targum says the Gan Eden as an example, just like the Garden of Eden, Gan Eden, who Na'ul is closed. What does it mean it's closed? Only the righteous, the tzaddikim could go into Gan Eden. It's not open for anyone. It's a closed garden. You have open gardens and closed gardens, right? You have a garden that's only exclusive for whoever's allowed in, which are the tzaddikim. Kain Yisrael, so to the Jewish people, they focus their doors, means towards Hashem, their husband, which is HaKodesh Baruch Hu. Means that they're only open towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like a woman who's only available for her husband. That's a Targum Yonis. Sorry, the Targum on Shir Shir. In the Maamar there, the Rebbe Marash and Tafresh Mem, Parshas the Rebbe Marash explains the Gan. What does it mean? What is a garden? Utainuk is a place of delight, of pleasure. Gan Na'ul, what does it mean that the garden, which is delight, is closed, is sealed? She'ein hatainuk rak b'likus. It's not an open pleasure there. I mean, pleasure, that means a person's available to take pleasure in any kind of scenario. When I want to take pleasure in kiddushin holiness, then I go for holiness, and I want to go for things that are unholy or not specifically holy. So the idea of Gan Na'ul means that it's a place of a Gan, which is a tainuk, which is delight, and it's closed, it's locked only to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rak b'likus, only to godliness. Like it says, aside from the Eibush, I don't want anything else. There points out. And then, like the Rebbe starts off saying, this is a Maamar of a continuation of Matzazu from that same year, Tafresh Mem. Mevar de Gan Na'ul hu sur merah. So in Matzazu, it's talking about, which is the idea of Pesach, which is talking about that you're focused, that you're leaving bad. Means going away from bad is the idea of Gan Na'ul, of sealed, going away from bad. You're sealed away from, you're seeing yourself away from bad towards positive. Sur merah. Then Sur merah hu beikar mamash, and that's an action. Sur merah is the level of the Beinani. Machshava di b'maiser, that your speech, thought, and action are only for kedusha. What is the chiddush of this Maamar, which is the continuation of that Maamar? That he adds, it's not just that your actions, your behaviors are only towards Hashem, based on the Maamar, that it's a Gan, like the Garden of Eden, Gan Na'ul is shegam hatainuk shlei rak b'likus. That what do you take pleasure in? Delight is only Hashem, which is the higher level. It means a person can take delight in other things. You could be an open garden for delight of anything that's delightful. But you're in control, and you make it only to be for your machshav, your thought, speech, and action, or specifically your action, should only be towards Hashem. Here, the Rebbe is mechadesh that a yid's tainug delight is only in HaKodesh Baruch Hu. Means that's all you take joy in is in HaKodesh Baruch Hu. On the pasuk, the Rebbe continues. We know the Rebbe were very mechaviv, took. It was very dear to them, the Pirush of the Mitzvos David. Al Pasuk Mifarish, so the Mitzvos David says, She Yisrael Heim Gan Na'ul is like a sealed garden. Not anyone can come in. He and Balagan, only the owner of the garden. And in this case, the owner of the Baal of the Gan is a Kadeshnu Baruch. So that's the simple translation. So the Rebbe now asks the question, one has to understand, it's not a chiddush to say, if the idea is like this, if the idea is that in this Maamar, the Rebbe Rash is mechadesh, that the tainug of a yid is only to Hashem, you don't have to give an example from Gan Eden. A Gan in general, why do people have a garden? It brings pleasure to the person. And if it's a sealed garden, it means it's only for people that can go, it's only allowed in for people. So it'd be simple to explain based on the Mitzvos David. Like it's a garden that's only for the owner. So why does it say Shagan hu tainug hu gam began kipshute? You know, it doesn't have to be that it's talking about the Garden of Eden as an example. Any garden is a garden of joy, of pleasure, of delight. Then came Gami Hamoshel, the Gan Na'ul kipshute, just using the Pirush to this David without bringing down the Targum. It's talking about the Garden of Eden. Moving the in oidim bischayim hu she'atanik shleihu rak belikus. And when you explain that how Gan is pleasure, then what is the pleasure? Is only in the godliness. That we put our doors are only open to godliness. Mami toise ba'avodas ha'inyan. What do we need to add for us to understand what we're talking about? Avodas ha'inyan. Yisrael oidim b'schem aydei apir shegan na'ul kaya Gan Eden. Why is it important to add the Targum that says it's like the Garden of Eden? The point is that our timing is only towards Hashem, and that we can understand from the simple translation. Like the stuff says, a Gan, it's like a Gan that's only for the owner of the Gan. So too, the Gan, the pleasure, the delight of Hashem, of a Yid is only towards Hashem. But with Prat, and specifically, the question gets even more. The Gan Na'ul Parshas Matan Torah. It's easier. Not only that we don't need to add the idea of Gan Eden. But if we're trying to show the nimshal means what's the parable? What are we trying to explain? That just like a person takes pleasure in the Gan, so to a person only takes pleasure in Hashem, it's null, it's closed only for the people that are allowed in. The kiddushin shegan na'ul b'han nimshal hu atanik shel. The fact that we're talking about over here is the pleasure of a person, the delight of a person is only towards Hashem, Yisrael. What is this? What is it close to? That we don't focus, and we do not take pleasure in anything else of worldly things. Doesn't mean that you don't take. There's nothing worldly that's not connected to HaChodesh Baruch Hu with Hashem. Even the things that are permissible that we're doing, even the Mitzvos that we have timing in, but the idea is the kedusha or the way Yeshiva Sitzara, the meaning of it. But stam to take time in Olam Haba, in Olam Hazeh, in this world, that's that Gan Na'ul. A Yid is closed out. That's what the pasuk is saying. That's what Shlomo Melech is describing in Song of Songs, Shir Shir. It's best understood if we compare that to a closed garden, just any garden, without it being the Garden of Eden. That we're taking an example from Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden was always a place for godliness. So if we need to say what the Rebbe is asking over here in this question is that when you have a Gan, that the whole place of the Gan is just for godliness. So it's not such an example where there's a possibility for there to be pleasure in something else. A regular garden, if it's open, it's not closed, means anyone could take pleasure in it. That it's open for the pleasures, so to say, for the experiences outside of godliness. When it's locked and only focused to the owner is that the garden is only for the pleasure of Hashem. The Garden of Eden, there's no option of timing somewhere else that you should have pleasure and godliness. It's a world of emes. It's a Garden of Eden. It's Elam Hava. So what's the idea that we're saying that we're trying to bring an example as if there's a choice here? The choice would be better as an example from a garden that could be exposed to other kind of pleasures. And however, over here it's focused only to be pleasured for the things that the person wants. Okay, so we can continue. See what I mean? Or I wanted to stay over here. Okay. He gives an example of the idea of the taibas, that there's footnote number 8. Footnote number 8 is okay. Time is only like this, unlike a person, like a marriage, unlike just an open relationship. Okay. Even Zapi Mashkas of Maamar will understand space when it says the Maamar, the Gan Na'ul, kiddushin. So to understand this better, why we're bringing also an example from the Garden of Eden is to explain within the element of the relationship, there's stages. It gives an example of what is the stage of the garden, which is that the tainug, that the chiddush is that the tainug. Here we're going to bring the point is we're going to bring a chiddush that in a level of kiddushin, of engagement, is also the focus of the tainug. Generally, a kiddushin and engagement, when a husband and wife, when a couple become engaged, that's just the stage so they should get married. The true time and pleasure and delight that the husband and wife have, the chassid and kala have, is in the marriage. The kiddushin is just a step to get ready for marriage. So the idea, the chiddush over here is that even in the level of gan, which is kiddushin, is timing. And that's the example that we're going to bring from Gan Eden. That's the idea in a nutshell. The even Zapi Mashkas of Maamar understands what the Maamar continues at the level of Gan Na'ul versus Gal Na'ul, that the spring, that the garden that's sealed only towards Hashem is like a level of kiddushin, engagement. The Rebbe Rash explains, based on what's known, we say, Kadeshnu, sanctify us with your mitzvos, and saying chelkeinu, give our portion to the Torah. It's brought down the Kadeshnu b'mitzvah secha u'mlashin kiddushin. The word Kadeshnu is from the word kadesh kiddushin, meaning sanctify us, engage us, so to say, like a level of engagement through mitzvahs. That's a level that the mitzvahs represents the idea of kiddushin, which we're going to explain as makif. It's a setting. Kiddushin who hasmana. Kiddushin here, the Rebbe says an amazing chiddush. And what does it mean? Kiddushin means like a hasmana, to get yourself ready or to prepare yourself. She'isha is Kadeshnu, when a woman becomes engaged to her husband to be, he mizumenes from HaChodesh becomes ready and separated, and only Lord Yichud means become lebaila to her husband. She's now only going to be available to her husband. They haven't yet consummated the marriage. They haven't yet made it into a marriage. But now the first step is that she's muzmenes, she's prepared and set aside for her husband. Like that's where the word kiddushin, when the HaChodesh, when you set aside the animal, it's set aside for sacrifice. It hasn't been sacrificed yet. And the outcome of it is, because you're muzmenes and yuchedes lebaila, you're now forbidden to anyone else. Up until that point, you were a woman's called a pnimi. Pnimi means available. Anyone who halachically, we're learning now the laws of Noshim in Rambam. So anyone who's available to marry this woman, if it's halachically, it's not an erva or shnia, whatever, what have you, and so then you can, and obviously, of course, both sides agree. Then you can get she's engaged, that she's pnimi, she has options. But once she becomes engaged, so that now she's miyuchedes and muzmenes to this person, but they're not yet married. That's the Kadeshnu mitzvah secha. Through the mitzvahs become, so to say, mizumun miyuched. Some people have that lashon before the mitzvahs. Meaning, I think before Sefiras there's certain discourse that they use the word muzmenes or mizumin, right? So there's through the mitzvahs, we're mizumin, so to say. We're set aside, getting ready to be connected to Hashem, but we haven't internalized it yet. It's not nissuin, marriage. Say chelkeinu b'teresecha, nissuin. Our portion in Torah, because we know Torah is like internalized. So they say, that means that the Torah is inside of me. That's the idea of marriage. Hamshach the pnimi is internalizing. So again, this is a subject that there's many questions about what's higher. Is it Torah higher or mitzvahs higher? Is the Torah so we could do mitzvahs, or the mitzvahs are to exercise the Torah? So here we're talking about that the Torah, the mitzvahs is only kiddushin. Marriage is the Torah. The Torah is all about how to do mitzvahs, but that's the cycle. And how do you totally grasp, like a woman, she's koilet the seed of her husband, means to grasp or to take in, is through Torah. Chelkeinu becomes part of us. Through the mitzvahs, it's makif, it's like a garment. But through Torah, it becomes chelkeinu, becomes part of who our portion. Yisrael. The connection that Yid has through performing the mitzvahs, is external. Encompassing external, like a garment or a house, 2 levels of makif. So what's the effect when we do mitzvah? Here the Rebbe says an amazing thing. That what's the effect of a mitzvah on the person's avodah and character is by doing a mitzvah. That's why the mitzvahs are very important when a person is holding in a space where they're not feeling it, or they're in temptation. A mitzvah creates, like kiddushin, separates you. And he says, here the Rebbe says, this is a mugadik that the effect is, the effect of the mitzvah is that it separates you slowly, it works on the person. Be separated from your pleasures of the world. And not only that, we call me this roy's bad character traits. Again, the connection to the idea of HaOmer. B'dugmas kiddushin is like the woman who becomes engaged. What is the primary effect of engagement of woman? Because they're not married yet, is that she's now separated from the rest of the world. She's forbidden to be the rest of the world. She even if they never go on to nissuin, they can't go into, she can never be available to another person until she gets a get from this kiddushin. So too, through mitzvahs, the effect on the person, and the void especially, is the Rebbe says it helps separate the person from the taivas and midas rice, which is an amazing thing. Besides the or, it comes down to the world in general through mitzvah. On a specific person, the effect is, and therefore, I think it was a letter of the Baal Shem Tov to told us that a person, that if you're feeling like down, you're feeling like a little bit shaken emotionally, or even mentally, he said do mitzvah. So in the letter, there's 5 points that the Baal Shem Tov writes to told us. One of them is if you ever feel more chayra, down, do mitzvah. And once you become engaged, just like a woman who's engaged because of that sets her muzmena, she's ready to be married. And then when you do the mitzvah, through the effect of the mitzvah that separates you from the taivas and works in your character, you could properly digest and become one with Torah. Like it says, Torah is inside of me, which is the idea of marriage. Let's continue. The Rebbe says like this. And this is not a long Maamar. So if we do a little bit today and a little bit tomorrow, maybe a little bit on Friday, we could finish the Maamar before Shabbos. The Rebbe adds, the mitzvahs of Torah, the eres of the nissuin. This that we're comparing. Torah and mitzvahs. Mitzvahs is like engagement, and Torah is like marriage. Is in 2 levels. What happens means how are you affecting hamshacha? How are you affecting the flow of aura, of light, of godliness into the world? One is shamshacha, the mitzvahs b'ha'adam, hamekamis mitzvah. One is, like we said before, the mitzvah is only bringing down, or not only it's bringing down a makif. Again, makif is very important. It's not just that you should get ready for the pnimi. It has a purpose on its own. You need to be in a safe space. You can't properly be a kli to take in Torah and to protect the Torah inside you if you don't have the makif as well. It's not just like the makif is just a stage to get to the nissuin, like maybe the example of the marriage would be that once you're married, then the engagement doesn't mean anything. The engagement helps the marriage in this case. So, but one is it brings down a makif, an encompassing energy, which is erison, which is engagement. So one of the differences is that mitzvahs is makif and Torah is pnimi. Also, what type of hamshach are you bringing down? Hamshachah the Torah, Hamshachas Na'ul, so pnimi Hamshachah the mitzvahs. Again, it's back to the question: is what's higher, Torah mitzvahs? So here clearly the focus of the Maamar is the Torah side. That the hamshacha that you're bringing down through Torah is as much higher, therefore it's able to come into pnimius, versus the hamshacha that's brought down, the flow of light that's brought down through mitzvahs, which is from a lower source than the source of Torah in comparison. Hamshacha the Torah, hamshacha na'ul so pnimius yes. The hamshacha from the hamshacha of mitzvahs. He brings down in footnote number 17 about the Torah Volek. The milas of Torah mitzvahs she'inyan she hamshachas al yoina yosef the gam shadei Torah nimshach hagil b'chinas pnimius. That comes because it comes. It's one is that it comes with pnimius, like he says, and the other one is that it comes from a higher source. But ad shehamshach the mitzvahs is b'chinas acharaim l'gam hamshachas Torah. The Rebbe goes even further to say that the hamshacha of, again quoting the Torah Volek, the hamshacha of mitzvahs is considered like acharaim, like from the back, like the difference between the back of a person versus the front of a person. The front of the person has character. You see the face. The back is just straight. Is that's the difference between the hamshacha, the flow that comes down from Torah versus mitzvahs. That's why the Torah is like considered like a tipa, like the seed, which happens through marriage, through relationship. She hamshachas atzmis, that the seed is the essence of the person, and therefore you could have ayloda. You could give birth. And that's why it's the same chelkeinu b'seresach. The Rebbe says we could say chelkeinu means two things. Chelkeinu is that our portion becomes a portion, we become connected to Torah. And a deeper level is one level is the Torah becomes our portion. And the higher level of the chelkeinu, that your chelik becomes our chelik. Like when the tipa, like when the seed, which is the essence of the man, goes into the woman, that becomes now part of the woman. And if you just have a drop of the essence of Hashem, like the Baal Shem Tov says, an essence doesn't have parts. If you have a portion of the essence, you have all of the essence. So that's again the difference between hamshacha of Torah and mitzvahs. One is that Torah is makif. It brings down the hamshacha in the way of makif. Torah is internal. And its source of mitzvahs is like acharaim, is secondary, or from the back versus the front of the hamshacha that come down from Torah is much more pnimi. It's like the seed that's from the essence of the person, of the man, into the woman. And the idea of chelkeinu also is in two levels. That the chelik of Hashem becomes part of us, and that Hashem becomes our chelik, and even deeper that the Hashem's essence becomes our essence. The Rebbe adds, just like an engagement is a process to get married, so too we say first chelkeinu to sanctify us, or mekadesh us through your mitzvahs, and then we say chelkeinu b'seresecha. This is also why we learn about HaChodesh before we even leave Egypt. Why? In the laws of HaChodesh are many commandments. Later, although of course it's repeated after Matan Torah, but what we learn these mitzvahs are from HaChodesh. There's many mitzvahs, and they get counted as part of the mitzvahs. It's matzah, etc. Of Kiddush HaChodesh. Because when we left Egypt, we started to go get ready for going to Matan Torah. So before we could do that, like a kiddushin, before a wedding, it's to become mitzvahs. They have to have mitzvahs. It's like the kli to get us ready for Matan Torah. The Indian, the Matan Torah. Matan Torah started from leaving Egypt. Like Hashem told Moshe that when you leave Mitzrayim, you're going to come to the Matan Torah, you're going to serve Hashem on this mountain. The whole purpose of Yetzias Mitzrayim is to go to Matan Torah. But after that, then we get an additional mitzvahs, which are the mitzvahs that were taught in Mara, like it says in the Sefiras as I commanded you, we're in Mara. Like says some chelkeinu mishpat, pasuk. That's even a next step of preparation for the giving of the Torah, because within Yetzias Mitzrayim itself, we still weren't at the mountain. This is giving deeper. Not just HaChodesh is Zachem. But the part that Rashi quotes down that the Torah should really have started from HaChodesh. Why did the Torah start from Bereshis? Is because of Koyach to show the original. The whole world was created for Jews, and therefore Abraham gave, like from the beginning to Avram, gave Eretz Yisrael to Avram. And we know the whole story is to show that we have to make the world into a place of kedusha, and we were empowered, and we have the ability to do that because that was the purpose of creation. That's itself an Hagdom. The Ma'aseh Mitzvos, the Torah, of getting ready for Torah, because the Ina HaChodesh is the Loy HaYitzarach. Because most of the mitzvahs are connected to Eretz Yisrael. So we learn about Eretz Yisrael from the beginning of Bereshis. Because the whole purpose of the beginning of Bereshis is Loy HaYitzarach. So why does the Torah start with Bereshis? To show that Eretz Yisrael belongs to Jews. I just finished the next paragraph. This one's the reasons. Not just in the way it was in the Zman, that there's Matan Torah, which has a HaChodesh, and then there's already starting from Bereshis, then the 10 mitzvahs in Mara, but also when we're getting ready for Matan Torah on a yearly basis, we have a lot of mitzvahs to get us ready. For instance, mitzvahs to Chag Pesach, mitzvahs for HaOmer. We have mitzvahs to Pesach and mitzvahs counting the HaOmer, which we know clearly mitzvahs for HaOmer is a hachana to Matan Torah as a preparation. Just like on a daily basis, when a person wakes up in the morning, becomes a new creation, like we say, thinking as if today we just got our neshama into us again, and we're ready to go. First, we have to do mitzvahs, which is krishma, tefillin, tefillah, because the main learning is tefillah that we learn after the davening. The learning we did before davening is a hana to davening, and therefore there's an idea of a shir after davening. Although it's brought down, I don't have the mocker of it, but I've heard that the Rebbe spoke about the makif around before davening. So we're talking about other shiurim. We get born in a new every year Pesach, and then we have mitzvahs to get ready for Matan Torah. The Achike mitzvahs and Mitzvos is Zman Mela mitzvahs the Chag Pesach. The Sefiras is Zman Matan Torah. Okay, the Rebbe is going to go continue to get us back to explaining deeper this idea, which is going to bring us back to the initial question of why do we have to bring an example of Gan Eden, which is a place of only Tainik for Hashem. There was no other possibility. Why is that the example that the Gan Na'ul, that the Yid's avoid of making their life, so to say, a garden that's closed and sealed only to have taivas, not just to have the first level, which is that machshav nirmaisa, that our actions are only for Hashem, but even our tainu, even our delight and pleasure is only for Hashem, which is it's a major madriga. Will be explained a little better in the continuation of the Maamar. Have a wonderful day.